Okay, and we are calling the December 1st, 2011 PRAC meeting to order at 7:06 and 30 seconds. I'm Brian Watt, I'm the chair, and to my far right is
Patrick Sweeney. Don Smith.
Lynn Betteridge.
Mike Mitchell.
Ted Shoemaker.
Marty Birch.
Denise Kai, staff.
Scott Archer, staff.
Larry Potter, staff.
Rochelle Parrish, swimming pool.
okay, and I'm wearing the Oregon City High School, some paraphernalia from the school. I was at the swimming meet, and I'll report to anybody watching out there and our audience here that our Pioneers are doing pretty good. It's the Three Rivers League relay meet, and we're swimming it out at LO right now. It's still going on, so I figured I left it in able hands. Let's just say that. So we're doing good. It's a fun meet too. First meet of the season. So did everybody get a chance to read the minutes that Scott had sent out earlier? If so, I see nods. Anybody have any comments or additions to the minutes? Okay, a motion for approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes.
A second.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes from the previous meeting from the 22nd of September. Wow. Was that it, really? Wow.
It's been a while.
Welcome back, everybody. Are approved. Next item on the agenda is the number 3, which is citizen comments on issues and items not on the agenda. And do we have any of those?
No, you've got
I
at
think
least
we do.
one.
'Cause I
I
see
don't know if you're speaking or just here, William. With him? Okay.
I thought we were 4E.
Well, it's. I suggested that you guys might want to just go under citizen.
and do it now.
Yeah. Their item kind of relates to our RV park discussion, but it's a new proposal, so I suggested they just talk about it under the citizen.
Okay. Very good. Good evening. Just state your name and
My name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City.
Hi, William.
Is this on? There we go. My name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City. I'm the Secretary of the Citizen Involvement Council.
My name is Larry Hanlon. I live in Oregon City, and I'm co-chair of the Citizens Involvement Council. Vice chair. And I'm chairman of the Caulfield Neighborhood Association. What I would like to discuss with you is I'm a disabled veteran, Vietnam veteran, and I do some classes. I teach some classes at the VA, and one of the things that I've heard over the years is that we need to do some things for the veterans. And I ran into this younger gentleman that had come back without his legs, and his major complaint was that he used to sit down at the Clackamas Park and fish, and he's no longer able to do that. So we came up with a little discussion in a group. And what I'd like to propose is this two-step process. Step 1 is to allow the disabled veterans with a 60% or better disability, which requires an ID card, to be able to park their camper trailers and motor homes in the city park at no cost for up to 5 days per month. And then we want to get that done in place. And the next step is to go out and get funding from union or labor unions and carpenters unions and possibly Home Depot type things to build a handicap accessible ramp to ADA standards. We're not asking for money to do that. We're just asking for the support and for the supervision of you guys to put this production together.
I understand we're talking about Clackamas Park.
Yeah, it says that on the paperwork. So, please help us. Will you?
Regarding Phase 1, I think it ought to be a pretty, it's more like a policy decision to make sure that I don't think the city has any objections to that, but certainly a recommendation from this board would be a help to help us get the city to commit on the fact that that's the policy, that disabled vets could park could camp at the Clackamas Park. There would probably be some issues about signage and how do we promote it and stuff like that, but we think that the cost of the city is going to be negligible, and we think this is a valuable thing to do for our veterans. The second part is, of course, going to take some engineering, and so we're probably going to have to get Public Works involved. We also want to take this presentation to to our newly reactivated Natural Resources Committee to see if they have any input on what could be done, because we understand there's going to be some issues with high water, with flooding. What are we going to do? Are we going to put a dock? Are we going to put just a ramp? Or is it going to be concrete? Is it going to be wood? Whatever. We understand there's going to be some engineering issues with that. But basically, we're working on the fact that we're going to be able to get a lot of this volunteer donated, both labor and material. So we don't think that's going to be a big cost to the city either, other than the fact that there's going to be issues of maintenance and so on. But we think that in the long run, it's a good investment for our veterans and for our city as well.
Any comments or questions?
I just have a really basic question. You said something about park for free, and then you said camp for free. So if you could clarify what we're talking about?
I misspoke.
Oh,
Yeah, it's overnight camping.
so like using one of the spaces that currently exist in the camping section of it. Okay.
And, there's a lot of people that could really do that. It would be a nice thing.
And apparently that is in accordance with many other state parks.
Yeah, we would want to go right down the same track as the state park system is already doing that.
Yeah, state parks are doing it, and that's one angle that we wanted to underscore, is that we would be putting OC parks in the same at the same standard as state parks. And the other thing, we wanted to make sure that we would be adhering, of course, as we would be required to, adhering to all ADA requirements for that fishing ramp. The fishing ramp, by the way, is for handicap, would not exclusively be just for veterans, but I mean, once you have a handicap fishing area available, that would be available to any handicapped individuals.
We've run this past the Caulfield Neighborhood Association. They're 100% behind it. Citizens Involvement Council was 100% behind it. And we've talked to Scott, and I think that he's in our court. Am I correct?
Yeah, just a couple of questions on one thing I forgot to ask you before, Larry, was, are you talking about on the Willamette part of Clackamas, or on the Clackamas part? Or
Well, the facility's already there on the Willamette side. We could just use the existing RV park. But the ramp, as far as the fishing ramp, we don't care. Whatever you folks decide, whatever works best for you. I don't even fish, so it's not a thing for me. But whatever is preferred by the city and the veterans. And we could get some help from, we've had the Carpenters Union already step up and say that they would donate labor. We've got a church within our neighborhood association that will step up, and a lot of the members of the Caulfield group would put in the labor, including myself.
Yeah.
So more specifically, I think the camping, of course, with being in the existing RV park,
Right.
The fishing ramp, we really don't care where. We think somewhere in that park, whether it's on the Clackamas side or the Willamette side, is not the issue.
Preferably where the fish are.
That would be a good
Yeah, and possibly close to
to that?
and possibly close to to some handicap parking as well, of course.
Yeah.
Mike?
First off, I think these are both wonderful goals, great ideas. I've got a question, first off, for Larry, as far as management of that, because we really don't on a daily basis check fee enforcement in the camping area, correct?
Daily.
We do.
Yes, I run through the RV park daily and do my receipts.
Okay. Is this going to present a burden of any?
I just, besides, as long as I have the ID so I can check it, I don't see it as any extra problem.
Okay. Great.
We have the
Thank
park
you.
hosts on site that could potentially help.
Yeah.
I think this would definitely be a policy change, so we would need to actually take our policy, review that, and see if that is something that I think generally it seems like a good idea, and we'd probably from the staff end be supportive, but we would just need the opportunity to kind of review what the logistics of managing that program would mean differently than today, which is, I think, maybe what you're getting at, Mike.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. And the other thing on the fishing, and I'm not a fisherman, so I'll show my ignorance, I guess. But kind of two questions: is the ramp at John Storm not ADA
No, it is
accessible? Okay. And is that a?
well,
I mean, is that dock a good
There's no-
fishing spot? Or
I can take care of that pretty quick. It's there's a rule. There is no fishing on that dock.
oh, okay.
It's
Except for that, yeah.
yeah.
Well, we can change that, right?
You can get on a boat and go a foot away from the dock and fish, but no, it was specifically built for boats and
Okay.
not for fishing. So
Okay.
there is a restriction for no fishing on that. Right? Yeah. So make sure I wasn't thinking incorrectly there,
Yeah, it's not at all compatible with wheelchairs.
unless the water's real high.
That's right, Scott. I stand corrected.
William, to clarify what you said, the RV park, the policy you're asking for at the RV park, that is already in place with the state parks?
States, as we understand it.
Yes.
I think that really, helps to reinforce what you're asking for. I mean, that, to me, that lends a lot of support. I mean, I couldn't see a lot of objections initially to what you guys are bringing up, but, in my mind, that really lends a lot of credibility to it. And
We're not saying that there aren't going to be a few details that need to be ironed out so far as policy and maintenance and things like that, but we think that the basic concept is who's going to argue with that? And all we're hoping for is your stamp of approval and see where else we need to take this.
I think, for me, it'd be hard to object to.
My day job is I'm the executive director for Chapter 1 Disabled American Veterans in Portland. And you just, I don't know whether that was just synchronicity or your timing is perfect, because I know we're going to talk about developing or improving the RV park today.
Propitious.
Yeah, and I have a couple. I'm way in favor of it, so and I'll vigorously support it.
Thank you.
Don't doubt that. But I got a couple questions, and then the disabled ID card. Are you talking about the one that I think the state issues one? Or are you talking about the VA card?
VA card.
And it gives a percentage of the rating.
Actually, no, it doesn't. It just, there's two cards that I have, and one is the military ID card, and the other one is the basic veterans card, but it says service connected on it. And I think that should be good enough. I hope I have it.
I think I have one too. For mine would say 20% on it.
Yeah, that's what it is. And, for somebody 20%, that's your call. I mean, I don't know what the number is, but I don't want it abused. It's just my stand is if I went down there to use it and somebody else wanted that space, I'd go home. Because that's not my hot button to go down there and go fishing.
Right.
But I might want to go down some evening and look at the river. So I think it's kind of an honor basis, and as long as our people are honest, I think it's going to work just fine. And I don't know what the number is. Is it 50%, 60%? I don't
I
know.
think the state parks are 50%.
I think you're right. I think you're right. And actually, I could go look that up because I've done that before.
So when you're saying veterans, you're thinking of Oregon veterans or any veteran?
I don't know if we could get away with saying Oregon veterans, but that would be the ideal situation if we can get away with that. Because I'll tell you who I have a real soft spot in my heart for is the National Guard. Those are our kids. And, that active military, Oregon driver's license and the ID card. I think if we could get that through, we may get sued. But that's what I'd like to try.
Well, if you were, to self-promote for a second, one of the things that we do where I work is promote adaptive recreation. That's probably half of what I do. So we're pretty behind this idea. Really good idea.
Thank you.
And I think it's pretty timely. Yeah.
It would be nice to have a little discussion about whether it would just be Oregon vets or any U.S. vet. I'm not opposed to any U.S. vet as far as I'm concerned. It's so far still just one country.
Well, the immediate problem is it's not a very big area. So, if you're going to take up 2/3 of the park with veterans, that's
Well,
a
we
little
could look at occupancy rates and
Right.
maybe restricted at certain times of the year as well. So,
Well, I hate to do that, but yeah.
Or a certain number of spaces.
yeah.
Yep.
That'd be a thought.
That's a great idea.
Do you have a written proposal?
The one that was submitted, you should have it right in front of That was
I
our.
didn't have one. Okay.
Probably 2 years.
Okay. Is it generally speaking, I guess, is it more than this?
No, that's it.
Is it, okay, all right. I thought maybe you just gave us an abbreviated version there. Okay,
We're pretty abbreviated guys.
that's good. Brevity is the soul of wit.
No, I just think that we need to do something
Say it
for.
again?
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Don't make me say it again.
I appreciate the support, and I guess my next question is, let's get it done.
Well, you did. You came at a good time, and we have been talking about the RV park in Oregon City for quite some time. And but we've really been talking about it in a greater sense, or a lot recently, in the past few PRAG meetings. So it's very timely that you would come with this at this point, and we'll definitely take your paper here under advisement, and we'll certainly can get back to you and let you know how we're progressing.
The other offer that I would like to make is if you need some groundwork done, I'm here to do research, and
Okay.
we can get the documentation with how the state handles it.
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe then we can put that back on you, Larry, to find out what the state policy is as far as that percentage question and what kind of ID card, and is it Oregon or all U.S. veterans? If you can answer those questions for us, then I think we line up to the
I'm
state
a pretty
policy.
busy
and-
guy, but I think I can give 5 minutes of my life to get that done for you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You could just send that info
Thanks,
back
gentlemen.
through me, and we can.
Okay, I
converse.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for your
very
service.
much.
Great ideas. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You're on it.
Eligibility.
Okay, we're moving on to general business. So our retired vet here should know what general business is all about. That's
Delegate.
delegate, exactly.
More brevity.
Okay, and up first is Rochelle Parsh with an Oregon City Swimming Pool update presentation. Please switch your screens.
And just a quick introduction, I wanted to remind the committee, I think Rochelle did this maybe about a year ago or so. Is it going to come on? We're working on the technical part of it, so I'll talk slower while we fix that. My hope is to have Rochelle come before you at least once a year, if not more, if it dictates, to give you a general update and remind you what good things are going on at the swimming pool. We're doing the same thing with the Pioneer Center, and Kathy's going to come to the next meeting, and let's see if we can get our technical difficulties solved here.
You've got poster boards, right, Rochelle? You've made your poster boards for this too? You got to always have a hard copy backup.
Hold the screen down. Technology.
I thought this was
At
just
least
a
it's red and green.
graphic
It's
from the-
definitely seasonal. It's the right color. Hey, Marty.
So you know they have to submit a letter and all that to the state to get an actual access pass
Every kid
to
has a laptop.
Campus State Park.
There are 30 kids in the
Oregon
room
veterans
with
are in
laptops,
Okay.
and trust me when I tell you.
U.S. veterans with
First
service
2-3
connected
weeks,
disabilities
it's a
must
very
obtain a
rough
letter from the U.S.
condition.
Department of Veteran Affairs, fill out and submit a one-page Oregon Park and Recreation Department application.
Do you want to mute us for a little while, Denise, or, yeah?
Oh yeah, that's me. It's just that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Survival.
Well, that sounds like more bureaucracy.
To find out what it takes. Because I have a friend.
Okay, and
I have a friend who's really interested in putting.
right, we are going to pass over item number 4A, and we're going to go on to item 4B, which is dog park. So we will get back to our pool update from Ms. Parsh in a moment, when our electronics agree to do that. So, want to start with
Sure.
an update, Mike?
Sure. Since our last meeting, we did have a second meeting of the Friends group, trying to get that organized. And the last time you'll recall, I said we had a great attendance at the first meeting, and we kind of didn't at the second one. For whatever reason, there weren't that many people there. 2 of our city commissioners were there, which was very nice, and they seemed very supportive of the idea. And I'm still convinced, I think we're all still convinced, that the interest is still out there. Just for whatever reason, we didn't get a lot of people at that meeting. And I've thought about it since then, and I guess it feels like we're kind of in an awkward spot, because I don't think we're going to be able to get much more enthusiasm, and certainly not any, monetary donations or in-kind donations, unless we have an idea of where it might be, a site or 2. I think it's just too vague for people to get excited about at this point, and certainly to want to put much time and money and material into it when we just are talking about it, that, yeah, we want to be able to do this, but we don't know where. So it feels like it's a chicken and the egg thing, and I'm a little frustrated. I don't know where we go from here. I'm looking for ideas and comments, I guess. But it just feels like we're a little stuck until we can put some meat on the bones.
Any other comments on the committee?
Are we not doing anything with Glen Echo? Or Glen Oak, I mean?
Glen Oak. We're going to be we're looking at trying to do the master plan for that in the coming year. So we're not doing anything in terms of development, but we are going to be doing the planning, kind of the visioning of that park, and potentially that might be a site that we could do, but we would be ahead of ourselves if we put something in there before we knew what the master plan was going to be.
We need to pick a park or an area that's going to be kind of centrally located, easily accessible, and that's pretty easy. You don't have to drive down any back roads or anything like that. It's just right off 213. Some of these are, Shenandoah is going to be hard to find. People don't know where it is.
Did I hear a proposal for a portion of Wesley Lynn at the first meeting?
That was one of the suggestions, yeah, for that. I guess it's the Phase 2 part of Wesley Lynn, which also is not master plan, right?
That's correct.
And is in closer to usable shape than Glen Oak. I mean, Glen Oak is just overgrown, right?
Right.
No facilities at all, where
Might be better for
Wesley-
a goat park.
Pardon?
Might be better for a goat park.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then when the goats get done, the dogs could come in.
Transition to the dogs.
While you're looking at these, you may want to look at the overlay areas also, because some of these parks you're talking about have water overlay areas, and I don't believe you're going to be allowed to cite a dog park. I know in Portland, the dog parks they have cited, some of them have been closed because of the ongoing pollution runoff. And I know that Westland Park, that is a water overlay, that's a drainage overlay in that area you're talking about. So Hillendale, same idea. Clackamas, you're next to a water source. So, when you look at siting, you're going to have to look real hard to make sure you are not near any water runoff, because that will get you into hot water real fast. At least it has in Portland. So,
Interesting.
So those are maps that exist now? Or is that research that has to be done?
There's a lot of areas that have overlays on maps right now. Yes, water overlay areas.
Okay.
And I know that Westland, that is a water overlay area in that back 3 acres. So.
Oh, it is? Mm-hmm. On the end up toward by the house that we bought?
Yeah, the north end.
The north end.
I'd call it the north end of the park, yes.
Okay. I think the site that sort of seems like the easiest and is the closest to already being a dog park is actually the old county animal control facility. whether or not the county would be interested in that, I don't know. Ray Gordon, who used to be on this committee and has been to at least has been to one of the dog park meetings, has spoken to a couple of people that she knows that work for the county who had to do with county facilities, and her impression was that they might be receptive to that they don't really have plans for that. And, that might be something that could be done, still with the idea maybe down the road when Glen Oak comes online or something, something bigger, more of a, a bigger facility. So, to me, that would probably be the one that if we were going to try to pursue and see if there's a chance, it'd be that county spot.
And Mike, that's already fenced, is that correct?
It is. The fenced area is not all that big.
Oh.
So it would sort of depend. I mean, you might open it up and find out that it's way undersized because it's way more popular. But there's also, I don't have a real clear idea where the property line is between, oh, help me out, the name of the park, I just forgot. Hillendale. Between the tennis courts of Hillendale and that fenced area, and then also between the animal control facility fenced area and the backside of the jail property. There's also a bunch more open area there, and I don't know who owns that.
I think the county owns all that.
Is there any park land that direction from the side of the tennis courts?
I think it extends towards the county property, probably 60 feet maybe beyond the tennis court. So it's not, we don't have a lot of area.
Not a whole lot, yeah. But there is a nice path from the parking over to that area, and there's also parking on the county side of it as well.
And then again, we'll have to be aware that we have that water overlay area there at Hillendale also.
Yeah.
Remember, we have the creek going through Hillendale.
Yeah.
And that's a year-round creek.
Okay.
Okay.
And that goes out.
And that goes through the county property.
Right through the.
Maybe why it didn't get developed.
So you're talking
Yeah.
about dog waste?
Yes.
Is that the issue?
Yes. Yes.
I don't remember that coming up. Was that part of the discussion? previously?
Never heard.
I haven't heard
no.
that. I haven't
Makes
heard the
sense.
water thing
Makes
before.
a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Portland, they've closed, I think, I can't give you the exact numbers. Portland Parks has closed a number of dog parks because of the water issues.
And that kind of depends on how well the park's being maintained by the users, if they're picking up
I
versus.
guess, I couldn't tell you what it's from, but yeah, they had we're doing some testing, and they had some definitely runoff problems. Gabriel Park was one, Mount Tabor I know was one, and I don't know about any others, but those two I know specifically, they had to do some adjusting real fast.
Yeah, I wonder if requirements are different because in different places, or whether it's who decides to object or whatever. Because just personal experience, Missoula, Montana, the dog park is riverfront. You're right on the Clark Fork River. When just downstream from there is a fully developed city park and kayaking facilities and all of that. And then the same thing at Bend, City of Bend, right behind the old mill, has a dog park right on the riverfront.
That's a good point.
Is it different? Is it different water as the Portland places you're referring to? Those are reservoirs.
Well,
versus
because of the reservoirs of Mount Tabor, Gabriel Park, they
Right.
have a protected stream there. A water quality stream there.
So the body of water has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. So
with the
maybe
examples
maybe
you-
that runs it. I couldn't tell you.
Something we'd have to look into for sure.
So, can you establish a process for selecting a location, and maybe take some steps there? I mean, it sounds like that's the next step in the process to evaluate potential locations and try to gain some traction there.
Okay.
Do you feel that the people who stepped up at the first meeting, who said they might be able to help with grant applications, are those people still?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, that was
Vocal
one individual, and
available.
she
Good.
still is available
Good.
to do that.
I would expect, Mike, that this is pretty typical. You get something launched, you get a lot of enthusiasm, and you start down that road, but there's a heck of a lot of details. and it's a big process, and you reach points along the way where, okay, we got a stumbling block, we're a little stuck, and people get on with their lives, and to sustain that kind of community enthusiasm, it makes sense to me that that'd be difficult to do. Doesn't mean the desire for that park that you originally saw from the community doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, I think it still does. I don't think that's an issue.
So did I miss it, or is there, what agency or agencies threw the flag up on those dog parks?
Well, for Mount Tabor, it was the water department there, at least on that, because they were getting pollution in those reservoirs. And that was years ago that they closed that park down. Gabriel, I'm not sure who got into that one, but I know they did some water testing, and that's when they closed the dog park there. So, and I couldn't tell you who did the testing there. I thought Lake Oswego had some problems along Tryon Creek. There was a dog park there. I thought they had some problem with there, but these are just ones that I picked up and read about.
A lot of horses there too.
It's a good thing to be aware of, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike, do you think also, you think perhaps we're still in an infancy stage of, fostering support that?
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Judging by the traffic on the Facebook account with people that are going and expressing interest, and only 2 meetings, and the last meeting being, right when so many people are getting back to school and getting things up and running in the early fall. It's just so busy that perhaps we can schedule a few more meetings and really try to drum up more support.
Mm-hmm.
That there could be a lot more out there, people that want to take the bull by the horns and continue to make this run.
And try to zero in a little more on sites. I still think that would help.
I think it's important to understand what's your next step in the process. I mean, are you looking for more support, or where are you at in it? Or is it time to start really taking a hard look at identifying some locations and ruling some out, narrowing that those potential locations down?
Mm-hmm. That's where I think it's at.
Well,
Narrow it
feels
down
like
to
it's there
a
to
small
me.
handful of possibilities.
I think I would agree with that, yeah.
Okay.
Because like you were saying earlier when we were talking, that if we narrow that down, it gives it tangible for those who are excited about it, like you were pointing out.
Right.
And then it can create a snowball effect because it looks tangible. Look, we've got 3 places really focused, really staked out here.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes more of a political push.
Okay.
Put them in a priority. This is the number one spot we want.
Pros and cons, and
Fight for that until somebody says, and then go to the next one.
Till Larry shows up and says, nope. Sorry, Larry, that wasn't fair.
Larry just pointed towards county.
Well, I'm glad you guys came to the right conclusion, because that's exactly what I was thinking too. So, haha. That's what I was going to say. I think that's what I think too. I think we should, in my experience, if you don't build it to a certain point, no one's going to make comment on it. I mean, we're at that point. We are at the point where we have to define what it is, what it looks like. So, and even right this evening, we've got a little bit more information to help us understand that maybe the spectrum of parks is getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
The choices are even getting smaller. So, when we zero in on 2 or 3 possibilities in Oregon City, I think, or whatever the possibilities are, and then we can rate those possibilities. That's definitely, in my mind, what the next step is, and continuing to think about what type of park we want, and also, continue to pass that on to the folks that are interested in moving down the roads for grants, and keeping in mind the Metro Enhancement Grant, which I think, when is that? When is the Metro meeting? Metro Enhancement. What are one of those packages due?
March, April?
That timing.
Coming up, because there are 2 different ones, so I always get them confused. There's Metro, and then there's the Oregon City Improvement
OCCIP.
Trust. Anybody know when the next one was? I'm not sure, Brian. I don't want to say because I'm probably going to be off one or the
Okay.
other.
One's it?
But in the spring.
Yeah.
So the packages are early
Coming
in
up.
the year. So just to keep
So
that
now's
in
the
mind.
time.
Yeah,
Okay.
so now's
Okay.
the time to
We'll
keep
get that going too.
And that's, those funds would have to be used by, after one calendar year of their award. So I think we're on course, and it's.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Question. I'm wondering if you could, this is pretty impressive list of properties you're taking care of. Is it possible to just go ahead and mark out the ones we know can't be?
What I was going to suggest
good.
is you have some, it sounds like you've got some shareholders out there that are interested. We were talking about the RV park, of what people might envision in that. You know, maybe what you need to do is go out and say, what do you see in a dog park? What do you need in a dog park? You know, as far as parking, size, amenities, and then you can go to these parks and say, well, we've got 60 spaces. Is this park available? You know, will it fit this parameter? And then that's another way to narrow down your search too. Is actually have your shareholders give their input as to, you know, what would they expect from a dog park.
We kind of do.
Oh, you have that
We
already?
kind of have
Oh,
that. I mean, not down to square footage, but amenities. And there's actually there's a list of this. This is pretty much kind of must-have, and this is what it would be nice to have someday. So I feel like we kind of do have that list. So then, yeah, we could overlay that over a parks map and look.
I'd look like that.
Yeah,
Because
and
that will help narrow your
The
search.
bugaboo that killed a bunch of them, we've talked about it a bunch of times, is parking.
Yep.
Because we've got some great parks, but
No,
you can't add the extra traffic.
Yeah.
So that's a concern. So, okay.
So,
But back to Don's question,
Yes.
I think that's pretty reasonable. What kind of effort would it take for you to maybe say, okay, I can rule out half this list, right, real quick, for example? Or would you need that criteria?
Yeah. We've kind of already done that. I think when the four of us met.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think we kind of got it pared down to like that half a dozen maybe or
Yeah.
so that were sort of
6 or 8.
had some possibility to it.
Right.
We just haven't taken it to the next level from there of really getting delving past that first question. So yeah, I think we've kind of already done that, and I think maybe it's just sort of delving into that a little bit more.
so you see that our subcommittee could meet with staff on that? Could they meet with staff on that sometime in the
Sounds like we
near
probably
future, and maybe whittle down that list, wicker it down to
Just a couple.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then I think the natural response to that would be, hey, that's in my neighborhood, and I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you get a lot more participation at that point. I think so. Awesome.
I think that's a good direction.
That sound like marching orders. Yeah. Put it in your vernacular.
I love all that we're doing, and now we're going backwards, but not really. I think we're back to Rochelle. All right. Because we're going forward with the pool, and I personally, I'm there every day, and I love it. So it looks great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to screw something up if I toggle over, am I?
We'll find out.
Looks good.
Working.
Well,
Way to stay with it, you guys.
Perfect.
Good job.
Okay, well, I'll just introduce. Is it okay if I
Go for it.
Okay. My name is Rochelle Parsh. I'm with the Oregon City Swimming Pool, and I do all the aquatic program and the majority of the recreation program, summer concert series. There's youth camps. We did movies in the park last summer. So what I'm going to do is just take an opportunity right now, and thanks for your time in advance for letting me go over just some of the highlights of the last year and talking about our accomplishments, our challenges, and our goals for the future. And one of the things I thought would be great to start out with a quote that kind of describes how we approach the pool and upgrading the pool. And we determine that the things shall and can be done, and then we shall find the way. So we're like, we've got to get this done, and then we find the way to do it. So, facility upgrades and accomplishment. So as you can see in the upper left picture, That's our showers, and they're covered in mold. It doesn't look very sightly. It's not a very sightly thing when patrons walk in. So what we did is we added a polymer coating, and as you can see, it's just an absolute drastic difference in it looks. So, in the bottom left picture, we replaced our diving board. The diving board was cracked, so that was a definite necessity. We had old acoustical tiles that were shredding and chipped, and they just didn't look very good. And then what we did is we painted the natatorium in a couple different phases. So we finished those projects in September. And as you can see, the difference in the acoustical tiles is drastic. New diving board, and then we also finished the paint. And so the natatorium painting was $8,400, and the new diving board was $32,000, and the new acoustical tile and painting was $12,000. So.
How old was the old diving board?
Oh, that's a great question.
I mean, I'm just trying to remember the last time I was there utilizing that. I mean, it was gone for a while, wasn't it?
I think it went out
Completely,
for-
or
We had done a repair on the darker blue one that you see on there.
Mhm.
We had done a welding repair on a hairline fracture. Oops. And the weld was sufficient to hold it for a while, but then eventually just the flex in it ended up having more than a hairline fracture.
20 years, maybe.
I can tell you that
I'm
wasn't
thinking
the
20
board-
years.
That wasn't the
You think it
board
was
that
that
I
one?
used to dive on or jump off.
well, the one I used to I remember
Years ago.
Yeah, because you busted it or what?
That's where that hairline crack came from.
If it's consistent with the pool, it's been there a while. So, okay. What we did a couple years ago, we replaced the roof, and while we did that, we also replaced, we were fixing a leak in the ceiling. And so in the process of replacing the leak, we ended up with sort of a bald spot on the natatorium ceiling. And so it didn't look very sightly, and so what we did is we came in this year and we were able to paint and put texture on it so it blended in a little bit more. And that repair was $1,500. With our kitchen, what we did is we actually went in, ripped up the subflooring, because when you would walk on the flooring in the kitchen and in the community room, it's spongy. And so the subflooring wasn't right. And so we took the opportunity to rip up the subflooring, added those, I think they're marmoleum tiles. They look fantastic, new linoleum countertops. It just gives it a really nice updated look. Bottom left, you can see that our hallway, same thing. The subfloors they weren't done they weren't done properly in the first place, and so the linoleum was also coming up cracked and chipped, and it just looked pretty awful. And so what we did is we added carpet to the hallways, and so it looks fantastic. And we also ran the carpet all the way down all the hallways. So
It's great.
yeah, it looks great.
It's
So
awesome.
kitchen and hallway upgrades were about $17,000. So well worth it. The community room flooring from the pictures, same thing. Subflooring was done improperly. The linoleum was chipped and cracked. Same thing, we ripped it up, and then we added new flooring. And then you can see the partition there. We also had, we were able to fix that and add patching to that. So just the community room has a whole brand new look this year.
How much of the subflooring came out?
The total community room flooring project was $28,000. I don't know what just the subflooring was.
All the subflooring came, okay.
Oh, I see what you're.
Added frame to the joists, so
Right.
we doubled up on the joists.
Okay,
That's
waiting.
nice, too.
Yeah, waiting pool repairs. We had exposed and chipped concrete, and for $200 we were able to come in just in-house and we replaced some of that concrete and painted it. So it has a different look too. So additional projects that we've accomplished. We upgraded our patio space. So we added 3 new tables, a new gas grill, and new ADA compliant fence. And so that space will be available and ready to rent in the spring, which will be a different additional revenue to the facility, which is going to be fantastic for the community. Miscellaneous annual projects. Lane line paint, the boiler maintenance, UV maintenance, and electrical panel cleaning are just some other things that we've done this year. Total costs from 2006 to 2012 is about $658,000. And you can see about every other year we tackle a pretty major project. In 2006, 2007, it was the energy efficiency upgrade. And then 2009, 2010 was when we replaced the roof and did some pretty major projects. So this year we're currently at about $72,000. So future goals. In 2012, 2013, we'd really like to replace the lockers. They're rusty. there's some safety issues, and what they do too is they take quarters. And so if we make these lockers so the public can use it, it's also additional revenue. So if we keep that in mind, that will provide us some additional money. Replace the boiler with an energy efficient boiler. Additional patio space upgrades, so keep upgrading that space for the community, and repair and replace the damaged ceiling tiles from the community room. And you can see in the bottom right, that's what some of the ceiling tiles in the community room look like.
Wow.
So we're actually receiving some quotes in regard to that, and hopefully we'll get that looking better. So. In 2013 and 14, we're going to place the, hopefully, the curtain wall window repair. And if you can see on the left, that would be just reinforce some of those windows. Take a look at that. Permanent wading pool solution and code compliance. So maybe add the polymer coating to the wading pool. And then looking at options to replaster or add a pool liner to the main pool. In 2014 and 15, hopefully complete the list of ADA corrections that have not been completed in previous years. Okay. So talking a little bit about aquatic and recreation programming. So some aquatic programs and challenges and our goals. So for challenges, the Oregon City School Lesson Program. So currently, in previous years, the Oregon City School District used to bring their schools and we teach in swim lessons, 1st through 6th grade. And what has happened is, as the budget is dwindling, the schools aren't able to send their students to our swim lesson program. And so as you can see, the revenue has been getting less and less, essentially. And so for 2011, 2012, it was sad to say that 3 out of the 11 schools were able to participate for a school lesson program. And that was with a lot of coaxing of the principals. We met with a lot of the principals, and the 2 things that we heard is just financially they couldn't do it, and then school time didn't necessarily allow it either. The kids just weren't in school enough to take them a week away from school to do swim lessons. And so that's one of the challenges we're facing. And I'm already out there talking to the principals. We're already meeting with groups to try to persuade parents and so they understand the importance of swim lessons through our schools. Because it's such a valuable thing, and sometimes that's the only time those kids ever see swim lessons. So we're working towards that. A positive thing is our after-school programs are flourishing, but the one downside is we just have such limited space. And so we've got waiting lists for our swim lesson programs we can't accommodate because with just the pool space we have. It would be great to add additional lap swim, adult swim time. We just are so limited on space and time. And then additional times for the swim teams and different things like that. All these groups trying to work together and get into the pool. So hopefully, to address some of these challenges, there's a lot of creative programming ideas to increase revenue and to increase the time in there. And we've right now, I've got water exercise classes, a deep water and a shallow class working together in the same pool. So there's a lot of creative programming ideas that we can do. And hopefully add additional daytime programs to subsidize the loss of revenue that we're from our school lesson program. I've added additional morning water exercise classes, indoor playground for preschoolers, recreation, swim times during school out, different things like that. So adapt and add programs based off of community feedback and identify trends in aquatics and provide classes and lessons according to those trends. Okay. Aquatic program comparison. So this just shows that our visits have been increasing over the years, and our revenue has roughly stayed about the same, within about $4,000. And the reason that we've had increased visits to the facilities, like I was previously stating, we've got additional water exercise classes, we've added pool rentals, additional adult lap swim times, increased attendance in our swim lesson program and private lessons. We've added schools out activities, additional advertising, stronger community partnerships, and there was creative programming and use of pool space. Now, with the fluctuation in revenue staying within $4,000, it goes back to the school lesson revenue. And it's great that we can stay within $4,000 of our revenue and have had such a strong school lesson program in 2007, 2008 of $60,000, and the projected for 11-12 is about $30,000. So we're really doing a lot of extra things to bring in the revenue. So, recreation programming. As you can see here, our recreation program total has roughly stayed about the same. What's the difference is we received grants in 2008 and 2009, mainly for the summer concert series. And in 2010, 2011, we didn't, and what we did is we raised additional sponsorship funds, and we also, with the additional recreation classes and programs that we're adding, it kept that recreation revenue up there, which is great. So losing the grants, but keeping our revenue up with additional programs, and just, working harder, adding different things. So existing programs, so the staff at the pool, not only are they responsible for all the recreation programs, taking registrations, customer service, but they also take all the registrations for all the recreation programs. And so the staff answering the phones have to be very versed on everything that's going on within the city. And some of the classes we just offer at the Oregon City Swimming Pool is karate class. We have dog classes, Skyhawks, tennis. The Daddy Daughter Dinner Dance is at the Abernathy Center, but we take the registration for that. The summer concert series at the Carnegie Center, and then our summer youth camps. Classes that we've recently just added, we have a weight loss class, schools out class. There was a British sport camp this summer, movies in the park, indoor playground and swim, and then since I made this PowerPoint, we added scuba diving, and then we're looking at the possibilities with fencing class. Okay, community partnerships. So the picture on the upper left, this was really one of the highlights of my this last year. And what we did is we partnered with Clackamas County Fire District. They came in and we ran through an emergency scenario with them. And the staff did a fake 911 call. They responded to what was a heart attack. And I can speak for myself, my heart was racing. I mean, this really brought it real. And they walked in and they were using the language and they busted out all their AED stuff and they were fantastic. Came in, did fake IDs. It was just really, really exciting. And when we were done, there was a question and answer opportunity. And so my staff was able to ask a lot of questions, and in turn, they asked my staff a lot of questions, like, where do you guys want us to go? What door do you want us to come to? You know, so it was a fantastic learning opportunity. And so I'm hoping they'll want to do that again come June. So then on the bottom left, that was fun. That was a cardboard boat race, and that was through the Oregon City High School, and that was a fundraiser. And the teachers participated. It was absolute riot. And some boats did fantastic, and some boats completely sank. And it was just so much fun to see. They're doing it again this year. Fantastic idea. I wish I had thought of it first. It's just great. So. And then the bottom right picture, the summer concert series, we really partner with a lot of organizations through the city that help make the summer concert series possible. And they just, it's without those guys, we wouldn't be able to have that. So we partner with them. We work really closely through other programs and stuff too. So there's a whole list. Boy Scouts, they come in and they do programs with us. 4-H, neighborhood associations. So, okay, and I really do have to give the credit to the Oregon City Pool staff. They work really, really hard. They train hard. They've got a great attitude. Without those guys, the things that the pool does and the customer service and that kind of stuff, they really do a fantastic job. So just kind of some pictures to end with of the staff in training. And so I really thank you guys for your time, and if you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer them.
When was that building
Nice
built?
presentation.
1965. We've done a lot in the last 5 or 6 years.
And that's how old those acoustic tiles were, too.
Yeah.
Older
Probably
than
the
me.
diving board, too. I mean, you never know. So.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to go into the facility recently, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised when you walk in and kind of look around a little bit. It's pretty amazing what we've been able to get done in the last few years. So.
It's amazing how it hasn't changed. I mean, I actually was swimming there in like 66, 67. So when I was 3, 4, I was swimming there. My grandma lives right by it. So it's amazing how it hasn't really changed until recently.
I agree.
I'm amazed at how efficient it is with all the programs in one pool. I went there this summer, with my infant, and I just couldn't imagine all the people that go through and learn how to swim and get all the coursework there. It's fantastic what you guys do.
Thank
It is a real gem in the community, isn't it?
It really is.
You know, and the elementary school swim lessons, great memories of my own, not to mention my kids. You know, having the opportunity to go down there for swim lessons for that week during school.
Elementary or
Yeah,
junior
remember
high?
the swimmer badge, the swimmer card you got?
Yeah. Mr. Fish was
Yeah,
was
Dave
teaching down
Fish.
there.
Yeah.
We were trying
Hey,
to
Dave.
figure out how long the school lesson program has been around, and it's got to be longer than 30 years is what we've been trying to, people coming in for an interview and they're like, I remember school lessons. We're like, when was that? And so it's been progressively, it's been around for a really long time. So it's affected a lot of school kids coming
Yeah.
through. So.
Well, I'm here to tell you, at least 40.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, that's why hopefully working on it this year and stuff, we can keep some schools. So.
Well, one thing that about the facility, if I could just say, I mean, we're just super pleased that we're able to make some, little bits and pieces. Rochelle did a great job of I think laying out how, from one year to the next, what the projects we've been able to do. Because typically, the way to do that type of rehab would be not necessarily piece by piece, but to go out maybe for a bond or have some way of just having one big chunk of money and just, doing a big facility rehab. And what we've been able to do, we didn't have the luxury of having that type of one-time funding, is have the support from the Parks Committee, from our City Commission to continue to budget for, on a couple of those years, those really big ticket items, the roof and the energy projects, the ones that were well over $100,000. We had to go and have kind of a special budget authorization for those projects. The smaller ones that we're just doing from year to year, although they're not inconsequential amounts of money, those are in our maintenance budget to have bite off a few of these projects every year. So it's not the ideal way to do it, but it's really worked, and it's a testament to our staff, Rochelle and Denise, and we've got some folks behind the scenes and some former staff and so on and so forth that just have really done an incredible job. An indoor swimming pool is not supposed to last for 46 years. It really isn't. And we were, a number of years ago, we were really questioning what's the future of Oregon City Swimming Pool. When we did our Parks Master Plan update, we specifically asked those questions to our community. What would you like us to do? Because it certainly isn't a modern facility. If you have a new swimming pool now, it's amazing what we're able to do program-wise. I think, Patrick, you just said that, and a couple of others said some things about getting all the different things in this facility. With just one rectangular body of water, we do an incredible amount of programs and activities and different things. If you build a new facility, you've been to some of these new, indoor places that you don't build one square or rectangular body of water. You build multiples, and you have different types of features and different types of bodies of water. So, to be able to do that. But when we did our 2008 master plan update, we asked our community, do you want us to start over and build a new facility? Would you support it? Or do you want us to stay where we're at and try to reinvest in that? And it came back pretty clear that the community said, let's stay where we are. We're not ready to support, this has been a few years ago now, but the survey very strongly indicated that our community said, we're not ready to build a new super aquatic facility just yet. Maybe somewhere out in the future, Oregon City will be ready for that. We want the swimming pool where it's at. It's working. Let's reinvest in it. And we've had to, as staff, kind of work to figure out how to negotiate the budgetary challenges that go with that, because we're still not there. We've got a long ways to go. But we've I'm just really pleased with the fact that we've got a facility that's, quite frankly, shouldn't be operating, but it runs. It's running very well. We've got some of the best water quality of any swimming pool. We put our water quality up against any other swimming pool in the state. It's that good, and we're doing that with machinery that's in some cases 46 years old, and some of the guts of this stuff are still the original stuff, and some of it we're replacing as we need to. But it's really no small feat. So anyway,
That comment. my background is water parks, amusement parks, and we opened probably 6 parks. We revamped 3 of those. My job title was a director of revenue, and the reason I clapped is to be able to maintain a revenue line with what's going on in our economy right now. Like that is commendable. I'm really 25 years old and have blonde hair, but it was a really hard 10 years I spent in those water parks, which puts me at 15 to start. But I got to hand it to you. That's pretty good. Most times you hear we want more tax money, we want more money from the citizens to be able to pull this off. And having watched the rise and fall of indoor aquatic centers, I actually worked for the city of Tempe's indoor aquatic center after one of the water parks that we did. And having been involved in that at the government level and then plus at the private level, to maintain the revenue line like you have that's incredible. I struggle every day running our business to be able to do that. So hats off to you for shucking and jiving and doing what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely, but I think it would be informative maybe if we all knew that what type of a deficit do we run that operation. I mean, even the citizens that are watching, knowing that we're probably at 60%, 55.
It's more about 50-50, and that's So not to appreciate the comments about the revenue, because we are continuing to try to keep our revenue, steady, or even find ways to keep increasing it. But the operation costs don't get cheaper by the year. The chemicals don't get.
So that's 50% of what we actually.
In very rough numbers, I could, if you wanted the exact amount, unless you've got some more accurate information off the top of your head, but we run at about a 50% subsidy, kind of traditionally. It bumps up and down a little bit depending on the revenues. If you watch the budgetary trends, in aquatic facility management, that's probably kind of right in the middle. It's not high and it's not low. In the operation of aquatic facilities, typically you don't see too many for-profit swimming pool operations. So a community has to make a conscious choice either to subsidize to some extent and have a swimming pool, an aquatic facility, or to not have it. And our city's continued to do that for 46 years on this site, and actually before that there was a public pool that went back to the 1930s. Some of our historians are probably watching this going, no, it's a different date, but we had the one that's at the old La Tourette Park site that was a public pool as well. So anyway, the point is our community has been historically supportive of operating a public swimming pool, and there are lots of.
But we make 50% of. Just to clarify, we make 50% of the cost back.
Right.
In revenues.
And that's a rough number, but yes,
right.
Yes,
okay,
that's correct. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
What would be really interesting is to see that original 1965 income statement or the P&L. That would be pretty interesting. Compare it to today. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Rochelle.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you.
Really good
Well done.
presentation.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's a great facility. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we are moving on to 4 Charlie.
Nice call, Brian.
4 Charlie, Pocket Parks. And Brian O'Brien Burke is not here this evening, but I believe that we can get an update. I think Scott has an update for us on the Pocket Parks, and we have a couple of handouts.
So at your spots, I think you have a piece of paper that says Pocket Parks, Open Spaces, Potential Disposition List.
I do. You might not.
Yeah, actually I do. Thank you.
So since Brian's not here tonight, I think he volunteered on behalf of PRAC to kind of head up the subcommittee. Brian, since the last meeting, came and met with Larry Potter and myself to do what PRAC asked him to do, which was to sort of kind of shake out the list a little bit from what it was before and maybe update it and start talking about if we were going to create a list that's up to date, what would it look like? And this is just a real kind of a crude summary of that. don't take this as anything official or what have you, but this is kind of just a basic summary of that conversation that when we sat down and kind of looked at that. What we did was we took the list of what was on the ballot in 2002 of the parks that were on the surplus or the disposition list, which again, of course, we all know that ballot question failed, but bringing back those parks to just kind of look at it again. And I'll just kind of walk through these real quick just as a refresher. The ones that were on there, I kind of put, what was on there and what our recommendation was as a subcommittee in terms of what we would suggest. Previously called Senior Citizens Park, now it's known as Richard Bloom Tots Park. That's the one that's kitty corner to Carnegie Library, Carnegie Park, just over here, a couple blocks away. We recommended, that was on the disposition list previously, and at the time it was a vacant lot. It wasn't developed, and of course now it's been improved tremendously. It's got a playground and a restroom, and it's well utilized, and there's no way we would put that on a disposition list. So that was an easy call. We said remove that from the list of potential sites.
Does that really have 16,640 square footage of play area?
Oh, you're looking at your, yeah, by the way, I gave you just for reference for this discussion as well as a number of, we've talked about what our park inventory list looks like, so I printed that most up-to-date one off for you.
I'm sorry to change the subject, but I just...
I'm not looking at the exact, maybe Larry can clarify for me. That sounds more like the size of the park, not the, so that might just be inclusive of the whole park
Maybe
area.
in the wrong category?
I don't know.
Something's
That's probably
accurate, can it?
that's probably the size of the park itself, the whole thing. I'm not. Continuing down the list there, Stafford Park. We kind of put that one as a question mark. It needs further consideration, and Hazelwood Park. We would also need to kind of evaluate those two a little bit further. There's potentially some value to those, but they also have the possibility of being considered those pocket parks that we might want to consider. So we just kind of have uncertain as a question mark. If you're not familiar with where these sites are at, I brought you a parks map previously that really in-depth one of the whole city, and we've probably I should have probably reminded you to bring that.
Holmes.
Scott, when you say value, do you mean value in
Here's Holmes. Grocery outlet.
sellability or
Not
value in utility?
Yes, the second, the latter. Not
Utility, okay.
necessarily financial value, but value of use is what I'm saying.
That's helpful for me, Brian. I'm familiar with Holmes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I know where that is.
Yeah, you won't even see it unless you go over on the other road. You just drive past that park. It's real light. One on Holmes.
Yeah,
But it extends all the way out to Holmes Lane, doesn't it?
yes, it does. It's narrow. It's right. It's narrow in that.
One sign on this side, and if you go the other side's got parking.
I guess for all these sites, if you're, we've looked at these on maps and we've talked about them. We've done our tour thing before, and some of you weren't around when we did the tours and stuff. But we do have the very updated parks map with all of our sites that I've distributed. If you need that again, please let me know, and I can get that to you. So maybe between now and the next meeting, which is actually, because we don't have a late December meeting, is a couple of months. If you have an opportunity, if you're not familiar with some of these sites, it might be good to, if you get a chance, if you're out and about, maybe swing by and just kind of put eyeballs on them a little bit and check them out if you want to get a feel for what we're talking about here.
Still online? On the website?
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember seeing them on the website.
Yeah, they are. There's actually, you can do a virtual tour of most of these sites too. You can look at the photos we've got up online.
And the Oregon Trail edition always includes
Right.
the map,
Got a map.
and that comes to our homes.
Yep.
Thanks to
But a bunch of
Denise.
these smaller ones aren't on that map.
Oh,
The one that's in
You're
the
right.
tree
That
news.
that map is a
oh.
big picture one that
Yeah.
it would take the one that I'm talking about that has the
Okay.
details that we distributed previously.
Right.
But also what Marty was talking about is if you go onto the parks page of the city's website and just go under parks, most of these are on the web, and you can locate them and look at pictures of them. Hartke Park, it's an older park that has some improvements. They're very outdated, but it's in a pretty highly developed neighborhood in terms of the density of the neighborhood. Multiple what I try duplexes and things of that nature. Multi-family housing around it, and some pretty high density. So, I think there's a need and some play value to that, or some use value. I think what we came up with was to recommend removing that from our list of sites to possibly get rid of, even though the park needs some help, it needs some updating. That's probably in that list of deferred maintenance items that we've got, where there's some tennis courts there that are busted up, and there's some old
I
pathways that need.
remember the tennis courts when we stopped there.
Shenandoah Park, that's just a little patch of grass, and we would definitely recommend leaving that on a list of sites to dispose.
Is that close to that Hartke Loop area?
It's more over, more over between Chapin and Central Point.
Okay.
And then Dement Park is also one that we would leave definitely on the list of sites. It's, again, a little patch of grass. That's the one that's kind of up off of Lynn. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, kind of up the hill from Lynn a little bit, just a little patch of grass, basically. And then we talked about a couple of other potential. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, I was just remembering it was kind of
okay.
up and around, and was right on the left as we drove up that little incline.
Yep, that's exactly right. And then we added a couple of sites that we would suggest considering adding to the list, and that would be Oak Tree Park, which is the one right next to the fire station on South End Road, and maybe the fire district would want to even take that from the city as a transfer, and they could use that as an extension of property or something. Just hypothetical there, but it doesn't really seem to have any value because I don't think it's not developed and people don't really know it's a park.
That was when we were discussing that ballot measure, correct? For the Methodist Church.
Yeah,
Same park.
a little sliver of that already got carved off to make that way for that development, and it actually improved the fire department's access back into their driveway there too. So, and the community didn't seem to have any heartburn. It passed pretty easily. So, as maybe a little bit of a get a little feel for what people think about that. And then a property that is known as Peter Skeen, which is in the Barkley Hills neighborhood. It's a little undeveloped property that, it's. I think it backs up to some houses and.
Backs up to houses, and then there's a 5-acre lot for sale right next to it. So
it's kind of in a.
Is it by the Mountain View Cemetery?
is it what now?
Well, I'm looking at Barkley Hills.
Do you know where Barkley Hills Park is at?
I'm looking at Barkley Hills Park, yes.
It's just around the corner.
It's just around the corner, okay. So Peter Skeen. So somewhere around in here.
So, can you review again what was the criteria that was set up for the identification of this? Was it, less than an acre of property, or it's in relation to the density of population, like you brought up, in Hartke Park being perhaps coming off that list because it's near a dense place, so it could be something usable later on.
Right.
Was there a criteria to kind of lasso these?
I think we kind of used some rough criteria, and then we kind of just used some common sense and some of our staff knowledge of what gets used and what doesn't. But yes, anything less than an acre definitely is. You got to take a look at that because whether the benefit versus the amount of money that you spend on maintaining something, and then just the usability of it, the location. Its proximity to neighborhoods and so forth, and whether it's developed or not developed, and some basic criteria like that kind of were what we looked at. So what we came up with there on the list, if you looked at it, we've got 2 from the previous list that we're definitely we would recommend leaving on the list, 2 that we've kind of got question marks that we think we'd need to evaluate a little further, and then 2 that we would think about adding. So we've got 4 for sure, and 2 possible.
What was Stafford again in your list? They were at 1.6 acres, but losing where it is again. Would you guys consider Stafford?
It's not actually that far from Hartke Park, isn't it? Kind of in that.
Well, it's
It's behind, it's right by the water.
yeah, it's wide,
Yeah.
large reservoir.
Oh, Stafford. Yeah,
Reservoir.
sorry, I'm thinking of
Holmes Lane?
Hazelwood.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what they were saying.
It's just off of Hall Avenue.
Okay.
They're on Holmes Lane.
Holmes Lane.
It's basically just kind of an open grassy area.
Okay.
We've got a picnic table and a couple of benches there.
Current.
It gets some limited use, and it has some open space value, but it's real limited in what that is, unless the city was ever going to do something, to develop it.
Why don't we look at it as a dog?
It's used as a dog park.
That's just
Kind
what
of
it
is.
is.
It's perfect.
I saw there's 8 parking places, and I didn't think there was any parking places. That one was brought up at one of the committee meetings.
Yeah, it's on the
Oh,
other side.
it's on the other side. Okay.
I think we talked about
Take a right after the water treatment.
Because that came up.
Yeah, you're right, Mike.
That came up, and so did the little sliver of Singer Creek
You're
that
absolutely
reaches
right.
out to.
So maybe we need to take a look back at that one in terms of the parking that exists, because I forgot about the parking off of Holmes Lane, but on the back side of it, whatever
Yeah.
that street is. The
Talking Stafford.
it's a parallel street to Holmes on the other side of that property. So yeah, good
Right
point.
there, Chevron, turn left. So we're going
Oh, okay.
Hall Avenue,
Okay.
turn left after
Oh,
Chevron.
Staff.
this
So-
weekend.
That one could possibly still be on the dog park list?
It could be. It was on there, and it went away because of parking.
Limited parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the other concern too, though, is it backs right up to some houses.
Right.
However, we know that people do use that as a dog run currently. So
Is that the one that the mayor lives
It's working
near?
now?
It isn't? Oh.
no,
Because I've heard him say that the park
That's,
by where he lives is also used a lot.
no, that's a different one. That's the one that's near the little Barclay School, just down the hill from
Barclay Park.
Barclay Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Barclay.
Different.
The name's even good.
What are you calling the property by Lynn and Charmin?
Charmin. It's called Charmin.
The triangle?
No, the triangle there.
Yeah.
It's called Charmin and Lynn.
And that's private,
That's all you got?
That's it. That's exactly what it's called.
and that's private property.
And we don't know. There's
It's
some weird.
private.
Well, it's but there's something with
That's
this.
private property.
Okay, because I wrote that down on
understood
my
that
add
was
to the list, but I can cross that off now?
I was told it was private property.
There's a.
Okay.
I don't want to get too deeply into that property issue right now, but there's some strange thing where it's not necessarily owned by the city, but somehow the city has responsibility for it, and there's some questions about that we still haven't figured out exactly. But we're really not doing too much of anything at all with that, so I don't know. That one's just kind of a big giant.
Leave that alone for now?
Wide spot in the road.
So, Larry, have you looked at these and kind of gotten a ballpark figure in your mind about the maintenance value of turning this over? Or
No, I didn't. Yeah, so we've done some. Larry and his staff actually did some rough estimates.
Okay,
and
great.
I don't have that information right now, but I'm going to need to send that out. I can forward that out to you that we can kind of think about a little bit more between now and our next meeting. But yeah, we've done a little bit of kind of rough estimates of what we spend on maintenance on some of these sites. And I think I was supposed to bring that to you at this meeting, but
was it, I mean, just off the top of your head, was it substantial? I mean, enough to
It's not substantial.
not a.
Most of these properties are not. Peter Skeen, very low maintenance. The other sites, we go by and pick up litter and mow, and some of them aren't mowed and some of them are. So that's actually more of our maintenance is the mowing than anything. So
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of hours, and we compile it for each park and the hours and our hourly rate, and $1,000, $2,000 maybe a year for some of these parks as well.
Yeah, it's not anything startling. I think as we really delved into kind of looking at what we'd still keep on the list or not keep on it, the number of sites that I probably had in my mind certainly is less than what I was thinking it might be. when we were, as we've talked about this, and with what Larry just told you, and we'll get you we actually put together some numbers, and like I said, I just forgot to bring that to you tonight, and I'll send that to you. I think it does make, from the staff perspective, it makes me take some pause and step back a little bit on this, whether it's worth running this out, through it's a pretty intense process to run this out to the ballot. It's not just simply just kind of throwing it out there. There's a lot of process. There'd be a lot of community discussion about this. I would almost suggest that we may be better served by doing kind of partly what we were talking about with this whole thing, which is, would some of the local neighborhoods be interested in these sites? Some of these are just patches of grass, or even not even grass, but just open space. Would some of the neighborhood associations or homeowners associations be interested in maybe in adopting these sites and doing something? Because the city, frankly, isn't going to develop something that isn't worth developing, but maybe the neighborhood would be. So, rather than take the full-blown approach of going out to the ballot on these, because there's no guarantee, even if we do that we have any way of turning these over somehow. If they don't have much financial value, or if they're not developable,
Right.
not sure how we're going to dispose of those anyway. And, there's some that have some tie-ins, like I mentioned Oak Tree Park, and maybe we could partner with the fire district. Maybe we could have some of those kinds of conversations. And so it does. After we did a little bit of this further investigation, and then after we crunched some numbers, I kind of wonder if it's worth the effort of going through all the trouble of putting it out, to the ballot, or maybe taking another approach to it.
If the burden on your staff and the city is much less than what you thought, it makes sense to me that it kind of, the motivation to go out and disposition these and go through that process, it certainly lessens that, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you look at it over, 20, 30 years of maintenance and no real return to the city. And what I mean by return to the city is, what use is it to the city citizens? A lot of these sites, you've got a neighbor that uses it because it's attached to their property. Oak Tree is used. I'm not even sure if Oak Tree is used at all. Peter Skeen's not used. Some of these sites don't have any intricate value to the citizens. So would it be worthwhile just to, give it to somebody else that, if we sold it, then at least the city recoups some money, and we quit doing maintenance. It's back on the tax roll possibly.
Yeah.
So over the long haul, that's what I would look at it.
Yeah.
More than anything.
That was my point too. Is that a couple of these probably aren't worth too much, but if we get assessments, or we could get some sort of an idea of how much these properties would generate, for sale if they were to be sold. But I like what you said about over the long term too. Because as we look over the long term and we add that up over the next 10 or 20 years, the number gets bigger. And if it makes sense, we can compare those values, the values of, how much maintenance would we save, how much could we legitimately sell the property for if it was disposed of, and something to at least form an opinion about and make a decision about. So I don't know. I think maybe, I don't know, what's a good way to get an assessment of those properties? I mean, we'd have to spend money to do that too, right?
Possibly. We might be able to talk to some real estate contacts that we have and just see if somebody could just ballpark something for us.
We're going to move forward. That's one of the next things we need to do is kind of fill in that, and maybe from that we could make the sort of a next step decision in this process whether to move forward with it. What do you guys think? But I think another option that is a good option is going out and I love it on the different levels. going out and seeing if some of these neighborhood communities would adopt it. And we have precedents that's already been set along those lines. I think of the Prom first. I'm not sure if we have any other parks that are maintained or have been maintained by groups or people, couples.
We do, yeah.
But I like that. I like that too.
I just have a quick question on this. As I'm looking at this inventory list at the amenities, what's a pole post?
For a trailway entry into a park, bollard is
Oh,
a post
okay.
that is able to be pulled out.
Okay. So it's not really some feature of the park. It's just it's there to keep cars from going into it.
Yes.
I get it. Okay.
A lot of the parks, when I first came on, we actually had posts on either side of pathways, driveways, and a chain. And it didn't lend itself to people riding their bikes or walking. You'd have to go around it. And so I started taking out the chains and putting in pole posts. Keep people from driving, but real nice, easy access.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
You don't have to let us know right now, but I mean, if that's a viable option, if we could actually get some sort of an assessment on these properties, and that would be the next thing that.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that and see if I can.
That way, we can make a decision. I think we'd have a more informed decision made if we had a little bit more information on that.
At least a ballpark, and then, like you mentioned, Larry, the putting it back on a tax roll. I have no idea what kind of how that would be, how taxes are assessed on private-owned piece of land.
We could roll that into the cost-benefit analysis.
Right, a 10-year outlook at tax revenue on each one of them, alone could warrant.
And the funny part is some of these properties might have been deeded to the city because they were deemed worthless at the time anyway.
I don't doubt
Exist out at all anyway. I mean, some of these may just be worthless pieces of property, and nobody wants them anyway. And in a lot of cases, I think the city had ended up with pieces of property that, here you go, I don't want it.
So there is a good lesson in this is going forward. We got to be real careful about what we look at to either purchase or accept as open space.
Yeah.
And we've said no thank you a few times in the last several years
To avoid taking on a burden.
to avoid some of these kinds of circumstances. So yeah, I'll take a look at that, Brian, see if I can figure out a way to get some ballpark cost estimates at least, and then we can maybe have a little bit more discussion about that.
Yeah. Really good points brought up, though, and we're it might be a different outcome in the long run than maybe what we were thinking about, but we're moving the ball down the road, aren't we? So, and we're coming up hopefully with the best possible solution. So. Okay, we are moving on to 4D, and we have 12 minutes before 9.
I want to see you pull this off.
Oh my gosh! I looked at the rest of
I
them.
like your awareness.
Well, keeping that
I
in mind,
just scrolled down.
I can give you a really quick overview on that.
Okay.
4D, so we can move forward pretty quickly. You have 3 members whose terms are ending at the end of this calendar year, and that's Ted and Mike and Don. Ted is not eligible to apply for another term because this is his second one, so unfortunately tonight is Ted's last meeting. And then
that is unfortunate.
Mike and Don are eligible to apply for a second term, and they both have. And so basically it's kind of a formality with that. If the group is supportive, we could pass on a recommendation to the mayor and have them hopefully reappointed by the next meeting potentially. So that would be your action you'd need to take on that as a group, is to give a recommendation. They both have put in for reapplication, unless either of you have changed your mind. If it goes after 9 o'clock, you might change your mind.
I will not be here the whole month of January. I'll be out of the country.
And then the
Approved.
Part two of that, before you do that, is we have one application that we've received, and that I forwarded to you. That is from Bob Burns. And originally, Bob was going to come tonight. I communicated with him to come a half an hour early, like we do in the interview and all that. And then contacted me a few days ago, and he said, "Shoot, I totally forgot. I bought some tickets for this event thing tonight a while back," and he was really, really sorry about that he couldn't be here. And I said, "No, don't worry," because he invested some money in some tickets for an event. Yeah. So he's really interested, and he does want to continue to pursue being a member of this group. You've got his application. I told him that I would just mention that tonight, and I also told him that unfortunately that we're not meeting again until late January. Unless you really wanted to expedite that process, you could meet sometime between now and whenever and have just a 15, 20-minute interview with him. But if not, you could just hold that until the January meeting, interview him, and then we could get the appointment process started if that's what you're interested in doing, or we may receive more applications between now and then and have multiple people to interview. So I'll just take your direction on that, what you want me to do.
Nice. Go ahead, Len.
Are there 2 positions that are open at this point then? Was there one unfilled?
There would just be one vacant. That
okay.
would be Ted's, assuming the reappointment of Don and Mike.
So we've been full to this point.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, which is
Briefly.
great. Yep, all 9 spots are full. And the only one, so we would have, as of December 31st, we would have one actually vacant position, and that's what this Mr. Burns application would be for.
Well, I've met Dr. Burns, and he's very well spoken. He helped us in our search for a superintendent of the Redland School District many moons ago, when he was employed by OSBA.
Yeah.
But I think that the logical next step is to invite him to come to the January meeting and have us meet him and have him be uncomfortable like we were and move forward.
It's a high stress.
Yep, I agree with that too, Lynn. I think we should have him over in this room here, and the 2 customary hot lights.
Because he could crack under pressure. You really think?
Much smaller room,
And
very
maybe
confined.
the mayor.
So 6:30.
Yep, we'll set it up for half an hour before the next meeting.
Everybody like that? Like the sound of that? 6:30, January
26th.
26th.
Yeah, whatever that is. And then, do you wish to take some kind of action on the 2 reappointment situations?
I think
Such
we,
as
I think
a
we have
recommendation?
general consensus that both gentlemen, Mike and Don, Mike and Don, yeah.
I don't know. You were pretty quick to approve my month to be out of here. Don't feel too welcome there.
So I think are we at 1? Are we on the same page with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So let's send that forward to the mayor, and like to hear back from him, and we'll give Mike and Don the good news. Actually, who's gonna call them? You will, Scott?
Yeah, well, actually, I think they'll get a formal letter from
the mayor
when that appointment happens, and we'll make it. We'll do all the formal stuff we usually do. So
Great.
Pretty fancy. Great, thank you.
Okay, 4E, RV Park, and we've already kind of started on that. So I'm encouraged, and I know that Larry, you've got some information for us. So if you could do that, and then we'll talk maybe briefly about the master planning process. Not the process itself, but maybe the timing, that more appropriately said. So go ahead, Larry.
I had Jamie, the office specialist at the cemetery, run up some numbers for me, and we came up with a 28% occupancy rate for the RV park for the past year. My hope is with improvements to the park, and the only improvements we can do to the RV park are what is existing. That's what's allowed. We can put in landscaping, we can put in asphalt, we can upgrade the electrical, water. We can't do sewer. We can't add restrooms or showers on the site. There's some restrictions to it.
You need to get closer to the microphone.
Can we add additional not sites, but if there's room to establish or to camp, to put up a tent?
Tent
or
sites.
do we have, I hear we have the room, but maybe we don't have the,
We, in the past, the city commission made a decision not to allow tent camping there.
Okay.
They had some problems with transients and things like that. So that was kind of nixed years ago when I.
years ago, okay, so that was quite some time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We could maybe readdress that?
we could revisit the question and see if it's open to consideration again. I don't know that I can just tell you from the conversations that we've had, there might not be a high level of staff support, but we're not the end-all decision-making, it could be, the question could be asked again, and we could certainly take a look. We would just tell you that there are concerns and there's some difficulty there, but again, we could,
I think the biggest problem you've got with tent camping is you don't have the facilities for tent camping. And what I mean by facilities is restrooms and showers. And that's, we're trying, my vision for the RV park is to have a RV park that rivals the county parks or the state parks to me. I mean, that's what, we're in the big business then if we can make it look like a state park.
Is the no shower, no restroom, is that because of the floodplain
Yes.
issue?
Yes.
Okay.
So there is no restroom at Clackamas Park, is that
There's a
correct?
restroom,
There is one.
but it is above ordinary
Okay.
high water.
Okay.
not specifically at the RV park.
It's in the middle,
over
it's kind of in
main
the middle of the
yeah.
park, yeah.
So what Larry's saying is we, because of circumstances, we would be very challenged to be able to even be able to put in a restroom there. The other thing I wanted to mention, just to kind of, for your discussion purposes, is that it is on our work plan. We've been talking about this for a while, but there's a lot of, you're looking at the kind of the core staff team who do all the day-to-day operations, plus we do all the park planning and development and everything else. So, we're kind of working our way through lists of things, and but the master planning process has kind of bubbled towards the top of our let's get it done pretty soon list. So we have on our work plan to do probably over the winter and maybe into the spring, depending on how long the process takes, to actually hire a designer to help us come up with a formal vision of what the upgrades would look like. And there will be we'll have some further discussion about maybe having a PRAC representative or a couple of you on some type of a steering committee with the design process. I think we've talked about that before. So,
Are we happy about this concept plan as a starting point for that? The concept plan
that is the foundation for that. So that was just a really
Lango
quick,
Hansen?
Yeah, that was like what you would call kind of just a sketch of the idea. Now we need to kind of put that more into concrete, like, does it really, do these measurements work?
Okay.
And if what you would come up with is a master plan that you could turn into a construction document and put out to bid.
So this definitely moved us down the road.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
That was
Okay.
just a kind of a cheap, quick way to do
Okay,
like
good.
a vision, a quick shot, and then now we want to take that and do the full work of that. That will also give us better cost estimates, so we'll know what our target is, because that's, we can talk about the vision and everything else, but the big issue here is I don't know how we're going to pay for this. It's not budgeted for. I don't think very much of this would qualify for use of our Parks SDC's funds, unfortunately, which is our best funding source that we have to build things, because most of it would be rehab kind of existing, and a little bit of it might qualify, but not a lot of it.
What was the acronym, the initials you just?
SDC, System Development Charges. Those are our development impact fees that we collect from new housing, and that's how we get most of our parks development projects done. And there's some very specific restrictions on how we can spend those in terms of redevelopment, or you can't use them for maintenance for sure, and redeveloping something, if you're increasing capacity or if it qualifies in certain ways, you can use those funds. But this this site probably isn't going to be very eligible for those fees. So then it's how do we fund it?
I think it's probably be a good metro candidate, the metro enhancement. I haven't looked at the constraints or the not the constraints, but the criteria for that in a while. But
it fits. But there kind of isn't, I think we did a really rough ballpark estimate when we did that drawing.
It was about 300.
I think we're in the 250 to 300,000
that
range.
would just be part of it.
So we'd be talking about a piece of that if we did the metro, because if you're doing well, you might get 30,000 or 40,000 bucks. But if you can put a few sources together like that, then you maybe have the potential to get on your way.
And then it potentially could be you wouldn't want to string it out too long, but it could be a multi-year effort. Yes.
I think that's problematic.
Yeah.
Because you start doing your infrastructure, which is your electrical, you tear up the park to drop in new electrical, and then all of a sudden, you've got all, it's all torn apart. So it's kind of hard to tear it apart, you're tearing up all the surfacing, is what I'm saying.
Maybe over 2 years. Perhaps. I mean, it's at least something we could look at because a $300,000 price tag is pretty daunting. But
I think our tangible goal, though, is as I said, this winter and spring is to complete that master plan vision and have something tangible, and then have a more tangible budget, and then we can really have something we can put our arms around and figure out how do we want to approach that, and then we can really get into that detail of discussion. But until we have that, we don't know for sure what we're just kind of throwing darts, and we don't know what we're talking about for sure. So,
and I think just one other thing, and I want to stay in my own swim lane here, is I keep thinking about those great high school students and all the great work they're doing, and I wonder if Britt Tucker, I don't know how long he's going to stick around up there, but if he would be interested at some point to take on a project or multiple projects down there, with his team of students that are cycling through that class. I think that needs to stay on our radar scope too, if it's all copacetic, so to speak.
I think you got to arm wrestle Mike, because I think we were talking about him doing the dog park. Doing the dog park
and then RV park.
But yes, no, I mean we do. That's we need to think creatively like that in terms of solutions, because it's going to be a little challenging to figure out how to.
Because those structures at Wesley Lynn, they're going to be there in 30, 40 years. I mean.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
So. Yeah.
I know this is just a preliminary, but what does this do as far as number of sites compared to what's down there now?
Well, I think that's the same number of sites. I've got a feeling when we start, I did some measurements and some taping off myself, because I've got my own design too, and I'm going to lose some sites. I mean, my vision is to lose some sites, make landscaping a little bit more attractive. So otherwise, to do that, I'm going to lose some sites. I think making this site more attractive, landscaped, is going to well worth offset any loss in RV sites.
Larry, I know you said 28% occupancy. How about summer weekend? How often does it fill up?
One weekend out of the year.
Okay.
4th of July.
So losing a few sites wouldn't be a big deal.
So that's usually that's when we turn away people, 4th of July usually.
Okay.
I mean, it's very seldom that we get 100% on a weekend. I mean, we'll get 90%, but I don't think I've ever seen it filled up.
Thanks.
All right, we want to go back a step, because do you remember when we talked about them having some kind of water? They were going to travel the waters, and they wanted to come in with tent
Yes.
spots.
Yes.
I mean, is that like dropped, or I mean, it's
That
kind of
was
gone
the,
bye-bye?
That was the canoe. That's
the Willamette River Water Trail group, and they're still out there. In fact, they've done a lot of that consortium or that group, which we're connected to, have created some vision. So that's still out there. and they'd probably still like to have some sites where they could do some of that. You know, again, could be some of those challenges. That's one thing in the tent camping question that I could see as a potential solution to that. I think Larry's right on about the concerns that we have about just doing that ongoing. Plus, you have to think about if we upgrade the park and it looks like a first-rate RV park, if you put a bunch of tent spots and have those scattered in down on our waterfront, which is very visible with our McLaughlin Boulevard improvements, is that the look you're wanting? You know, and but maybe some special event weekend things and activities where some, you know, a bike tour group comes through and stop, the water trail group comes through on a big weekend thing, that we make some, you know, some type of exception in our policy that, you know,
You can apply for a permit.
by special permission, we can do some group tent camping. That's, you're in for a couple of days, you're out. The group maybe has to pay for, you know, some portable restrooms to come in for a few days, and we have the ability to deal with it and manage that. I could see that being kind of a neat thing down there, because, you know, down along that trail between Clackamat and John Storm, but just on an ongoing basis, it is problematic. But that, you know, things like that, maybe every once in a while that we could manage might really have some potential.
And we have done that in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the last statement I would make is, and I'll just defer to Don. I mean, I know he's got an interest in the RV park, but we kind of made you the RV park operative the last, like 2 meetings ago. Are you still interested in kind of honchoing, maybe being on that group that gets together and master plans?
I am, but I have to say, when they say it can't be done, that just makes me want to run harder.
Well, Don, you know, I'm not an old guy. I'm not young, but I'm not old. But I've been around long enough to know that we need people like that don't just go, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. You know, we don't need yes men. We need somebody who says, well, you know, that doesn't make any sense at all here. Listen to what I got to say. So I think he'd be perfect.
So as we move forward on this master planning process, we'll definitely, everything, you know, we'll keep you in the loop on it, and if we
That
do
sound
some
good,
kind of as we do some kind of a selection of the designer, we'll get you in the loop on that, and then also through the process, and we'll be talking to you. I'll be bringing you updates as well. So,
Yeah, I think, I don't know, like we've talked about before, this is a great piece of property, and there's many solutions to different problems and issues, and so let's just keep talking about it. Yeah.
great.
Any other comments on that? Okay. Other business that did not make it onto our agenda that you'd like to bring up at this time? Scott?
Hate to do this, but I do have an item. Sorry.
Okay.
Just remember, we haven't met for 2 months, and then we're not going to have a meeting next month. So we have to give a little forgiveness on the time. So don't hold that on Brian, because we're jamming like 3 months of meetings into one. So I just want to give you a quick update on something related to the discussion about the parks and open spaces utility fee that we've been talking about for, I think, the last year and a half, something like that. I won't go back and kind of do all the refresher stuff. If you have any questions, if there's some gaps in your memory about this or something, just let me know and I'll remind you. But what I have been asked to do, and this was specifically in our city commission goals, was to for the current year, was to explore the potential of a parks utility fee. And we've been talking about it, and you know, on the staff level, we've been continuing to do some kind of looking into some things and so forth. But every January, the City Commission holds their goal-setting retreat, and they look at the goals that they had previously and kind of update where they're at. But what I've been asked to do is, at the one coming up in January, is to bring the Commission a report of kind of a I guess we call it a sort of a white paper, an exploratory report about the feasibility of this type of fee, what the process would look like if we decide to go forth with going fully into the doing a formula and that kind of thing. So in January, I think we're scheduled for mid-January for our annual goal-setting meeting with the City Commission, where they set their goals for the coming year. This will be a point of discussion. I am working to kind of formulate a discussion paper that will lay out, if you want, this is kind of me speaking to the Commission, if you want to go forward with exploring this is what the process will entail. These are some of the potential kind of parameters and hurdles and different things that are going to be going on. These are some of the potential, based on the housing and the commercial that we have, development that we have, these are some of the potential amounts that we could be talking about, depending on how far you want to take this. So I will be talking about that in January. Now, this is just the discussion. If the Commission says, yes, let's go forth, that process to develop a fee is going to take probably the better part of a year. And then there's the whole discussion about, do you actually implement the fee at the end of the process right away, or do you do it in incremental portions? And because we do have this history in our city of a pavement maintenance utility fee. I don't know if you're aware of that. If you are a utility ratepayer in Oregon City, every month you have a little line that says it's something to the effect of pavement maintenance utility, and that goes directly towards road improvement projects. And that's exactly the same, by statute and by how it works is exactly what we're talking about for the parks utility fee. And so we do have a history of having developed one of those types of fees, and we have the experience of having gone through that. And it's a very intense process. It takes a lot of time. You work with a lot of staff time and some consulting time to help basically develop the methodology and then a formula for a fee, and then the Commission gets to ultimately make the decision of charging the city's ratepayers some additional money at the end of that or whatever. So I will keep you posted, obviously, and I will be sharing, hopefully by your next meeting, I'll bring you the same report that I'll be giving the City Commission, this discussion paper. We may even be able to do at some point kind of a little bit more of a formal presentation where we really get into some nuts and bolts. But if the Commission isn't interested in that, it's a political issue because you're talking about charging more money. If they're not interested in going forward, then unless PRAC is really, really supportive of continuing that conversation, then you'd have to decide how you wanted to press forward on that and discuss that further with the Commission. At the staff level, I can tell you that right now, I am advocating for continuing that conversation. It's something that I think we need to really take a look at. So we'll kind of see where that goes. But that's kind of there's going to be, between now and the next time that PRAC meets, that's going to be kind of a major milestone in the process of the park utility fee thing, is the Commission saying, let's go out and really explore this, or no, we're not ready to do this right now. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that conversation, and if you had any questions about the process right now, or if you want to just kind of wait, then we'll revisit with you where we're at, and we'll kind of take it from there at the next meeting, or whatever you want to talk about.
Scott, should we have something on the record, a motion and a vote that PRAC supports pursuing the idea of that fee now, prior to that would retreat next month? So you can say, PRAC is fully in support of the idea.
If you're willing to do that with kind of the limited information that you've got right now, but you could do that without tying yourself to any of the specifics of it, yeah, that would help. Anytime that I go to the Commission and say, we're recommending X, Y, Z, and also PRAC does support this, we've discussed it. We've done that a lot with the parks developments and property purchases and the various things that we've done. So it always helps, yeah.
I want more information.
I think that's a good point about it would be you know, it would be an endorsement with limited information.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not any numbers brought to the table.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd have to go back and review that master plan we looked at, but to me, that was the biggest eye-opener, you know, as far as putting some numbers in front of me to see, hey, what's the average amount of workforce versus the amount of square footage of parks,
Right.
you know, in the country.
Yeah, no, I very much recognize that you'd be, if you made some type of recommendation, you'd be doing that without, because I don't even have the information yet. We're still trying to develop what, you know, this discussion in kind of what this even looks like. What I think, though, over the last year or a little bit more than that we've been discussing it, I think that my sense has been that PrAC has been at least supportive of the concept of exploring this idea. Is that a fair statement? Because that's the sense. Because if I felt at any point along the way that you were totally opposed to that, we probably have to really think about, you know, if our citizens advisory group isn't supportive, then we're not going to get this very far. So that's been my sense, is that you've at least been supportive of exploring the concept. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to give a ringing endorsement, because there's a lot of details that still have to be discussed. So, anyway.
And just as a reminder to everybody, in the annual update that we gave the commission, which I've got right here, the second major bullet was Parks Maintenance Utility Fee. PrAC desires to be a part of the methodology discussion. So I think we were leaning in our understanding to assuming that it was going to take place. So back then, during that discussion, I know that we decided that we wanted to be a part of that discussion of the methodology of how it would all unfold and what it would look like, what the process would be. So I think, you know, I am in favor that you know, we need to be kept informed of what's happening, and that what terminology, what did you just say as far as
well, just my perception of your position has been that you're just generally in support of exploring the idea,
right?
And that's about as far as we've really gotten with any discussion.
I think we should continue to explore it.
Yeah. So long as you're not opposed to exploring the idea, and again, that's not an endorsement of whatever might be, because there's still a lot of conversation to happen. So
it's also number 8 on our PrAC goals: support exploration. So really, I think you'd have to do is we don't really have to come to another consensus unless it's differing from our goal number 8: support exploration of parks maintenance utility fee or other alternative revenue sources for supporting parks maintenance to increase staff to meet community expectations for levels of service. That's number 8 on our PrAC goals.
Yep.
I got to tell you, I for one strongly support the exploration. I mean, and you know, to the extent, I mean, I think there's a disservice to the community to some extent if you don't get it in front of them and say, there's a lot of things that we could do, that we'd like to do, that because of revenue constraints, we're limited.
Yep.
You know, the park, you mentioned that we procured up here. That thing's been sitting for 3 years now, with nothing done to it. It's just an empty piece of property, or not empty, but I mean, it needs to be developed. And the RV park, I mean, with the revenue challenges with that, and how nice that could be.
That's a perfect example. We just talked about the RV park and the kind of limited ability to fund that. Developing a methodology of a park's utility fee, you have a lot of open-ended things that, I mean, it's pretty open in terms of what you could put in that list, and that's got to be decided through some public discussion and process. But for example, things like that, the RV park, well, we know it's not going to qualify for STCs, and we know we're probably not going to get $250,000 from the city because it's got some other priorities. We have some other priorities, doing this and that and the other. That's a perfect example. You could put something like, some or all of the cost of that into the methodology and that actually helps you help a portion of the fee is generated towards specific projects. And there's a lot of that type of specific discussion, and that's I'm just using that as a really good example since you brought it up. But those are exactly the types of discussions that would happen if you go through the development of the methodology, is you figure out what's in the fee, what is going to be covered. Are we just going to cover basic park maintenance? Are we going to cover park maintenance plus a certain list of projects or deferred maintenance that we can't do otherwise, or and it's pretty open-ended, so it takes a while to decide and determine what you end up recommending. So what I can tell you, though, is if there is support from the City Commission to continue down the path of exploring this and really actually kind of taking the next step and moving forward, the Parks and Rec Committee, you would be very involved in this process, is to the level that you would want to be. This is a very participatory type of a process. So it wouldn't be something that would sneak up on anybody.
Outside of that, part of the reason I got involved in this committee was that, let's put it this way, I own 2 boats. I put them in the river probably 30 times a summer. I drive all the way to the Columbia River often, and I use the path. Matter of fact, I saw you jogging the other day over there, and that ramp, all the maintenance on that ramp, all of that, all these people that come to our community to use that ramp should be paying to use the ramp and the other ramp also, both ramps. And when we're talking about how to raise money, we could come up to the level that the Columbia River already is and start charging what it takes to maintain that ramp. And that money could possibly be used for the RV park. Another reason that I got involved, and I was pretty transparent when I got here, is that, I don't know if you're aware, but there isn't a private concern working out of Sportcraft that put 2,600 paddlers on the river this summer between Sportcraft and the falls. And those guys are really interested in a concession. And when I say concessions, I don't mean hot dogs and hamburgers. I mean using the resources that we have to try to facilitate that type of activity. Because that's all really, those people came here and ate lunch. They went somewhere else while they were here. And I see all the resources that we have just kind of under potential in that way. I think that your idea is one facet of it. I think that's, what we're talking about there, what'd you call it, the utility fee. But I also think per use. And I'm a user. I mean, I use the facility, and I'm not opposed to paying if it's clean and it works and my boat don't fall in a hole at the bottom of the ramp.
Which it won't anymore. As of a few weeks ago.
Yeah. And you should see my boat trailer. It has fallen in the hole off of the ramp, actually.
Lots of them have, yeah.
But I am on full support of exploring these ideas and more, because if we really want some real quality facilities, we need to act like they do.
Well, I know we probably don't want to open the can of worms and start that whole discussion tonight, but if that's something that the committee wants to explore in the future, we can have that conversation. I've got some things to give you some food for thought on that, like, for example, charging a launch fee like a lot of the Portland sites do along the Willamette and the Columbia. There's some positives, and then there are some negatives to it, but we won't get into all that tonight. But yeah, we've thought about it too. So it's not that we haven't thought about it. We just haven't gone there, and there's a few reasons why, but that doesn't mean that we would never go there. So
thanks. Another
discussion for another time, I think.
Okay, so if everybody agrees, what you can tell the commission for their luxury getaway is our previously stated positions on both of these, the annual update and the Pratt goals provide. If you guys are okay with that, already in writing.
Yes.
Okay. Super.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah. Pratt member reports. Marty, you haven't been here in a while. You've got to have a couple of good items for us.
Still going to school.
Marty
every day homework. I have nothing. I just know I was down along the waterfront, and it looks really nice.
Yeah.
Might have to go back more when it's warmer.
Yes. Ed, last meeting?
Last meeting, probably a good opportunity for me to just tell you how much I enjoyed the experience. Interesting to learn a little bit more about how this part of the city government operates. Some good experiences with some of the committees I've got a chance to work on. Spoke in front of Metro at one point in time for the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Program or project, and the when the Park Place area was brought into the urban growth boundary, that part of that Park Place Advisory Committee, that was a pretty lengthy process and really interesting. Learned a lot from that, and working with the consultant on the end of the Oregon Trail project. All good experiences for me, and really enjoyed all that. And I can tell you too, I think right now this is probably one of the strongest committees that I've been a part of right now. I mean, and a lot of that, Brian, is with your leadership. I mean, you really do a good job, in keeping, the direction of the group. So, been nice working with everybody, and thanks.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
We're going to end with you. Yeah, we could end with, or do you want to go next?
I don't care.
Okay. Why don't you go next?
I don't care. Sure, I'm like,
Yeah, you're next, Mike.
one more thing on the utility fee. I was at I live in the Caulfield neighborhood, and I was at their last meeting 6 weeks or so ago, and Mayor Neely spoke. And in response to a question that really didn't have anything to do with a parks utility fee, he brought up a parks utility fee. And there were 50 people in the room. So for a politician to come out and talk about extra tax money in a public forum when he really wasn't asked about it, I took as a real positive sign that at least I think the mayor is supportive of pursuing it. I was really kind of shocked that he would bring it up, because that wasn't what the question was about, but it became part of the answer. The other thing, a few weeks ago, I went to the unveiling of the Lee Kelly sculpture, part of the Rotary project at the foot of the falls. It's a beautiful sculpture in kind of an odd spot, but that is what it is. But what really came to mind, and it goes back to something that Brian has talked about several times, and that's that trail interconnect and signage through downtown. You're looking at that thing, and if you want to then take the next natural step and go to the top of the hill, you can't get there from here. There's no sidewalk down Railroad Avenue. You're really right up against the side of a building, and there's not even room for a sidewalk, hardly. So I guess what I'm saying is I think PRAC, as the dust settles on all the Main Street improvements and the traffic changes and what they're doing, once that all settles out, I think we need to look at again at, okay, how do we make that linkage between John Storm to that sculpture, up the falls, to the McLaughlin House, and on up, because there's a real gap right there.
I don't know if you're aware, and probably, as you say, when the dust settles, because the dust is just really barely starting to settle, and you may not have had a chance to visit lately, but if you walk around in downtown, that signage, the missing link in the downtown signage thing, ended up getting put in as part of these downtown improvements. However,
It's on the sidewalk.
very good. There was a decision made along the way. It was originally going to be signage that was more vertical, and just because of some design factors and things that were beyond my scope of authority, the decision was made to put signage into the walkways and the sidewalks. So if you walk at almost every block corner, there's some directional information that you would look right down at if you were walking or whatever, and it's pretty interesting. So a pretty big chunk of that has been done, but
Cool.
a lot of people haven't been downtown for a while because it's been so under construction that you probably wanted to avoid it. So if you...
An example of where I would see that, would that be on Main Street?
Mostly on Main, and then some of the some of the main arterials off of Main have some of that continue, but it's mostly down Main, and then kind of through to the elevator and so forth. Yeah, and that's not to say that there isn't more that could still be done in certain parts, and I think that Railroad Avenue obviously is real constrictive and challenging. But yeah. So kind of down the main corridor anyway, there's some interesting. It was a different way of doing that, but that decision was made to do that. So yeah, good observation, Brian.
And just one more quick thing. I just want to say to Ted, thank you for your service and how much fun it's been to work with you. I've been sitting here trying to think. Years ago, there was a financial services company on TV, and their tagline was, "When whoever this is talks, people listen." And that's the way I've conducted. E.F. Hutton, you're right. And that's the way I've conducted myself at this meeting. When Ted takes the time to speak, I want to listen, because it's always a well-reasoned and well-thought-out opinion. And it's been great fun to work with you. And I wish there was a way we could spin the clock ahead and get you to be able to stay. But I know term limits got it. So anyway, thank you.
Nice.
You can
Thanks a
reapply
lot.
after you've been off for a year.
Approved.
That's nice of you guys. Thanks a lot, Mike. That's really nice.
Well, thank you for all your service.
And I just thought I'd give you a few quick updates from Kathy from the Pioneer Center. Thanksgiving was celebrated with lots of conviviality and warmth and good food. They had 90 people in the congregate meal site the day that they celebrated Thanksgiving, and 116 full meals went out with the Meals on Wheels. Also, Pioneer Center has been one of the really vocal, hard-working advocates and sponsors of the Oregon City, the Christmas Historic Parlor Tour. And that's going to occur on Saturday, December 10th from 2 to 7. And it's going to involve 6 private homes where you're invited into the parlor only, and then 3 museums. And I know today from listening to Maureen speak at the Friends of the Oregon City Library luncheon that the Carnegie will also be inviting people in that day, and they have harpists who will be playing and serenading. So we're going to do Christmas up well too, I suspect. Also, because I've had an opportunity to be personally involved with the Phyllis Stocking Project. Right now we have 250 stockings that we will be planning on delivering. They all come through the auspices of the Phyllis Stocking, and they have wonderful gifts, toiletries, sometimes gift cards, sometimes stuffed animals. They're a way to really acknowledge how small many of our patrons' lives are, and that they don't otherwise get a gift. And so they get to open this big cloth stocking and keep pulling things out, and some of it's very practical, and I think they're always really, really appreciative of doing that. And the fun part that I get to do is mainly it's people who are on staff at Redland Elementary School, but they've all retired, but we all like to see each other. And I was PTA president for a couple terms, and so it was like I was on staff during those years as well. So we just use this as our excuse to get together on a morning, and we go through them. And what we're mainly doing is making sure if a client is diabetic, that we're pulling out candy and sharp razors and things like that. So it's pretty minimal, but it's fun. So lots of good work is occurring. And then I'm hoping at some point I can give a little bit more of a report. The Pioneer Center was the focus point of working on this mapping project that was part of a larger Clackamas County project. Identified that by the year 2015, more than 40% of the adults living in Clackamas County and within the communities will be over 50. So this all was looking at, let's do some planning so that we are really in a better position to know what the needs are and to plan for them. And they looked at all kinds of things like the physical environment, transportation, housing, outdoor spaces, social environment, civic engagement, social participation, lots of issues that we also address through the Parks and Rec. So I'm hoping that I can maybe have a little bit of a report, maybe just to hand out to you beforehand.
Actually, Kathy will be at the next meeting.
Oh, good.
Doing basically a report like Rochelle did, and I think she's going to touch base on
Good,
the
good.
specific results of that.
Good. Good work, and thank you, Ted, too.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
It's such a nice break from the testosterone. It's a nice soft edge. Not much to report other than I was invited to the Clackamas County Tourism. It was a meeting, kind of a quick put together meeting over Westland to attract, make Clackamas County a destination for bicycle-based tourism. And it was really interesting because it kind of dovetailed in with a bunch of things that you just all talked about. Signage, connectivity, really making it, so that when you get to the traffic light right there at, 12th or 13th or 10th, that, our path along the waterfront kind of just stops there. And then you said there's signs in the, on the sidewalk now that kind of brings you over to the elevator. And the elevator was a real big topic of discussion because a lot of them felt like we could get more cyclists over here if they didn't have to really climb up Singer Hill. And they said, well, we have one of the most unique amenities. You can get in the elevator and go to the top of the hill. And then a lot of discussion was about the historic value of Oregon City and Westland, but most of the conversation was about Oregon City. And it really fit really nicely with what we do. And it looked like there's even maybe grant money available to accomplish some of these things. I pushed really hard that we could get this area right here, because the Clackamas County Tourism, they have a bed tax, and they've amassed some money to help pursue this, and they're talking about advertising in the airline magazines and other media. But I pushed really hard. Scott was there for the first part of the meeting, and then I stayed for the rest of the day to get this area right here in Oregon City and Westland right there is the gateway to Clackamas County, where bicycle-based tourism might base or start. That's why the tent camp thing came up and that kind of thing. And there was a lot of enthusiasm about it. We talked about an official logo that people and businesses that support this idea would have in their window. We talked about bike-friendly business, what it would really mean to welcome the money, or these people, synonymous with money, into the community. There's some reluctance by some businesses to really embrace cyclists. And they gave a couple of examples of other communities that really ran into some difficult issues with cyclists, and then once they realized what it was really worth to them, they embrace them now, and they can't wait for them to come back every year. So to just really kind of wrap that up pretty quick, was a really cool meeting. They're going to have several of them regionally, and they're trying to build a consensus to kind of get some traction and a plan to really promote Clackamas County tourism in the cycling arena. And I will say this, I have 3 reasons that I moved here. And one of them was a bicycling magazine 13 years ago that I read when I was stuck in New Jersey. Said Portland, Oregon, or Oregon was the #1 bicycle destination, place for bicycle-based vacations. And that was one of the 3 reasons I moved here. And when the camera's off, I'll tell you the other 2. And that's my report.
Thank you, Don.
No reports from me other than I survived my first high school coaching position thing, so I can finally breathe now. And it's pretty intense. So, but no reports from me.
What were you coaching, Patrick?
I guess a rival high school soccer program. I got asked. It's where I work to coach out there, and it's really hard starting teaching and a full-time coaching position at the same time. I mean, I couldn't breathe.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty intense, but a very memorable experience. Wonderful. Wilsonville. They're rivals, right?
Boys or girls?
Boys.
Thank you,
But,
Ben.
yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Okay, staff reports.
We'll try to move expeditiously through these based on the hour that we're looking at here. The Kanemo Park project, just to let you know what's going on, it is moving along well. There, if you went by there, you'd see actually some grass seed germinating in a lot of the field areas. Of course, we did the playground volunteer build back in September. We've already talked about that. Metro, in conjunction with the neighborhood and with the city, did a volunteer planting along the buffer between our property and Metro's property. Planted something like 1,300 wildflowers and 1,500 what do you call them, plugs of native grasses, and so thousands of new plants of kind of natural vegetation in some of the natural areas. The walkways are all in at the park. The basketball court, you can see where that's at. Anyway, just it's really progressing nicely. The weather slowed the project down a little bit, and we also had some additional rock excavation that was unanticipated, that we kind of took a little more effort and a little bit more money than we had projected. But we're still well within our budget, and we will be when the project is done. And you know, we're planning a spring grand opening, so we're obviously doing quite well there. The Sportcraft boat ramp, as you all know, that opened recently. We held our ribbon cutting on November 14th, and that project I think has just turned out great, and it's going to be well used and well enjoyed by the boating community. So the Rotary, I was going to mention about the Singer Creek project update, but Mike already mentioned that, the unveiling of the art sculptor. That was really the first phase of the kind of the rehabilitation, or the that phasing project. I know, Brian, you've asked for some updates on that once in a while, but that's really the update right now, is that was the big phase one part of it, and it's been completed, so there'll be probably some further discussion down the road about that. We did just recently, well, actually a couple weeks ago, and then again today, the Oregon City Optimist Club did a volunteer cleanup over at Richard Bloom Tots Park, and they kind of finished that work today, and it looks great. We had some neat pictures taken of that, and so we're real happy about that. And then I guess wrapping up, I'd like to also thank Ted Shoemaker for his service. I think, about 6 years or so, Ted? You've done 2 full terms, right? So 6 years of service, and echo a lot of what's already been said. Ted, you've been an excellent member of this committee.
Thank you, Steve.
It's a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you've taken on not just being at these meetings, but the additional kind of being a representative on other task force or other meeting groups and so forth, and just can't say enough nice things. So I appreciate your service. I appreciate having worked with you, and I know that the city very much appreciates your time working with us. So
All good experiences for me.
Good.
And, I didn't get a chance to say either. I mean, working with Denise and yourself and Larry, I mean, learned a lot from you guys, and have a great appreciation for the job you guys do.
Thank you.
And I think you guys are excellent at what you do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And on that line, once we gavel the meeting closed, if you've got just a few extra minutes, we got a cake for Ted. We wanted to do a little quick kind of a cake celebration. So if you can't stay, at least take a piece of cake home with you and eat it in honor of Ted. But
You guys don't mind hanging around till 11 or so, do you?
well, we got coffee, so we could really just get everybody revved back up. So that's it for me, and then Denise probably has a few items for you. Did you have
Just a couple.
Thanks.
Changing to the senior center. Pioneer Center is closed December 23rd, and on the 22nd we will have the holiday meal. So I think, other than that, that's it. And Ted, we're going to be missing you.
Miss you guys too. Thanks, Denise.
That concludes the
Okay.
staff reports.
Okay, great. Just to let you guys know, we covered 6 of the 10 PrAC goals tonight, so we are definitely on track. We're doing a great job. Number 2 is about Ted. And like I said before, a couple of meetings ago, Ted, as I'm staying on this committee longer, I'm seeing people leave, and one of the biggest, if it was actually the biggest reason I was okay with taking on the chair position was you were still on the committee. So I knew that if I needed you'd be there. Honestly, I'm being honest with you. So I was much more comfortable knowing that you were still going to be on the committee.
That's great to know.
So, and January, think about who you'd like to succeed me, because we're going to vote on that in January. You guys. Okay. Next scheduled meeting is January 26th, and we'll start that meeting at 6:30.
Really?
Except for you.
Except for
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
Do you already have a
was
copy
that-
of this?
I forgot.